Good day and welcome to Module 5. I'm Edmundo van der Berg, and in this module, I will be your facilitator. In this module, we will focus on assessment for learning low-tech solutions. Now, what that means is that you don't need any learner devices, but you can still use technology. The tool that we will be focused on today is SwiftGrade, and what this tool does is it takes the red pen out of our hands and replace it with a mobile device. So say goodbye to the long hours sitting at the desk marking informal assessments. Now, all you need is your phone. You scan a piece of paper and voila, there is your marks. First, I've mentioned that this is the module that will focus on assessment for learning. Now with that, I want to start off by talking about formative assessment. Now what is formative assessment? As we know, formative assessment is the type of assessment that we use on a continuous basis to monitor our students' progress and also to provide some feedback to our students. So formative assessment is an ongoing process where we as a teacher provide the feedback to our learners, and it lets our learners know where they are in the learning journey. So let's say we write a test, right? The learner get the feedback in the form of the results. Now the learner knows exactly where they are and where they should focus on the next time, right? But with that, I want to talk about the feedback loop, because when we talk about formative assessment, the feedback loop plays a vital role. Now the feedback loop consists of 4 components. The first one is building content knowledge. The second one is assessing the content knowledge. The third one is providing feedback on the assessed knowledge. And then the fourth one is identifying the missing knowledge. Now, when we do formative assessment, this is critical because we want this feedback loop to continue. And how does it work? First, when we build the content knowledge, as teachers, we know that we are the ones standing in front of the class and teaching the lesson. Now, this can be any lesson, but the main goal is to build content in our learners, right? Is to give them information, and we do this by using different teaching styles, different teaching methodologies in order for them to get what we are teaching, right? And when we're done with a certain topic, we move on to the next part. And that part is now assessing whether they understand the work that we taught. For example, we will give them a test. It can be a quiz, it can be a class test, or it can be the questions that we normally ask them in class. That is assessing that knowledge. Then we move to the third one, which is giving them feedback. So what this means is now, when let's say we gave them a class test. So basically now, we as a teacher will mark the class test with them, or alone after school, or whenever we have an off period. Then we will give them the test results back. That is the feedback that we provide to them, because now they know where they are struggling. And as teacher, while we are marking the work, we can also see where our learners are struggling, which is a very important and a vital role. Now, when that step is done, we move to the fourth and the final step, is identifying the missing knowledge. So let's say our learner got a 50% out of 100. Right? That means that half of that work the learners don't understand, or the learner don't understand. That other 50% is the missing knowledge. So what are we as a teacher going to do? Are we just going to move on and forget about that knowledge? Or are we going back and then assess the learner again, build content knowledge again, and then see whether our learners will improve on that mark? Now, with formative assessment, this is where digital tools comes into hand, because what normally happens without the digital tools is that we found ourselves with a broken feedback loop. And what that means is that we forget the fourth and the final part. And I think the most important part is identifying the missing knowledge. And it's understanding, because we have a lot of work, we have a lot of classes, and we can't do a lot of formative assessment, mark it, and then give it back to the learners, take it back to class again, and then go teach it again. That is where it starts to get a little bit complicated, right? Because we need to move on. We need to complete our curriculum, okay? But with formative assessment and with digital tools, this makes it so much more simpler, because what we now can do is we can close the feedback loop, meaning we can build the content knowledge, we can assess the content knowledge, we can then provide feedback to our learners, and then we can identify the missing knowledge. Now, when we do this, we use digital tools to close the feedback loop. So, I've talked about the feedback loop and closing the feedback loop using technology. But how do we digitize a test environment without learner devices? Well, the answer is simple. Let AI grade learners work. Now, the tool that we will do today will do exactly that. Artificial intelligence at this stage are very, very useful for us as teachers, and we should utilize the tools that's available to us. Here in the e-learning space, we always say, work smarter, not harder, and let AI grade your work. But how? The answer? SwiftGrade. Now, what is SwiftGrade? Now, I know I mentioned SwiftGrade before. I've mentioned that it takes the red pen out of our hands and replace it with a mobile device. But here's SwiftGrade. SwiftGrade is an application that uses AI technologies that grades students' handwritten tests. I'm not talking about online quizzes. I'm talking about handwritten tests. Tests that learners sit down, wrote on a piece of paper, that type of test. Now, I know it may be difficult to understand, but we will learn all about this in a moment. But first, let me take you through all of the question types that SwiftGrade has to offer. So the most popular ones and the most accurate ones when it comes to scanning is the multiple choice question that SwiftGrade provides. So SwiftGrade provides 100 multiple choice questions on a piece of paper. So if you have a question paper consisting of 100 questions, consisting of multiple choice questions, SwiftGrade can do that. The second type is fill in the blank. And this one is very, very, very good, because learners can actually write in words. Yes, I said words, because they can write more than one word on a piece of paper, and the AI will mark that work. Now, there's not a catch. AI will mark it. However, on the SwiftGrade paper, there are clear instructions on how learners should write. They should write big, the first one. They should write in the blocks, second one. And they should not write cursive. They should write loose, okay? But that we will also focus on a little bit later. The third one is scan, process, plus answer questions. And this type is more for our maths teachers, because here students can show how they worked out a maths equation and then have the answer as well, which is very, very good to have and to see how our learners think. Then the final one is the free response type. Now here is more for our language teachers maybe, because here students can even write a paragraph. right? Meaning they can write long sentences. And what SwiftGrade does is it marks that with Grade GPT or a rubric. But also, we will look at that when we deal with SwiftGrade first then. So for now, let's open SwiftGrade. First of all, remember that SwiftGrade is not an online quiz creation tool. In SwiftGrade, you can only create the memo for question paper. Now, the question paper should already be completed before you go to SwiftGrade. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to show you an example, a practical example of what I did in my class. So what I did for this term, I took a copy out of the book because we are busy with the structure of the earth. And this is the information, but this is the questions based on the information. So what I did is that I have now created a memo for this question paper, right? Because this is the purpose of SwiftGrade, is taking old, already question papers that you have already created, and you can turn it now into a digital tool to get more analytics, because that's what I do, okay? But for this was a baseline to see what do they know about the structure of Earth and what are they struggling with, okay? So this is the question paper, and then I've created my SwiftGrade, and this is the paper that I will hand out to them, and they will then do it. As you can see, there are handwritten blocks, and this is where they will actually go and write in some answers. And then over here, you can see there is multiple choice questions, and that is where they can just mark in a circle for the correct answer. Okay, so let's see how this looks in practice. So first, I will hand out this, and then I will hand out the SwiftGrade paper. Now, SwiftGrade created this paper for me, but I have inserted the correct answers into SwiftGrade. But I will show you how I did that in a minute. But first, let's see how this actually takes place. So, I've handed out this question paper, and I've asked the learners to paste it in their books. Then, I've handed them out this piece of paper that I got from SwiftGrade. And this is the paper where they will then answer these questions on. So, let's see how they did it. As you can see, the learners are now busy with this question paper. They read the questions and they answer it on SwiftGrade. When they are done, I'm going to take out my phone and I'm going to scan it. So, let me show you how that works. Now, I've made a video to show you exactly how long it took for me to mark 31 learners' scripts. Now, the video is 4 minutes long without any interruptions to show you exactly how quick and easy it will be to mark this type of assessments with SwiftGrade. Now, you can imagine marking 31 scripts. It's 12 questions. How long will that actually take you if you have to go and read through everything and then mark it? But now I'm going to show you how SwiftGrade did it. So first, I've opened my phone, and then I went to the SwiftGrade app. Then I've waited, and then I go to the class where I've created, which is 7D. Then you will see the camera button, because that is where you scan it. Then all I do now is I scan it, and as the scan is completed, the learner's name will appear on there. If you scan it twice, it will tell you that it's a duplicate name. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around in class, point it to the learner's script, and then it will scan it. And you can see it's not even a second, then it's done. Okay. In this college is the power of SwiftGrade. Like I mentioned earlier on, SwiftGrade gives you the power to get instant results, and it doesn't take long, because all I'm doing now is I'm now walking around in class and I'm scanning the different learners. Now you can decide what works best for you, but this approach worked best for me. I've tried a lot of approaches before, and as I've said, what works for you will work for you. For me, this is the best approach, where they write it, I walk around, I've marked it, and I know it's done and dusted. You can also take it in and then mark it one by one, basically by just scanning through everything yourself, and it will be as easy as you currently see on the screen. Now, with this piece of paper that I'm showing you currently, college, you can see that the paper is cut in half. Again, I've noticed that that also works for me. Instead of having a full page of paper, depending on how I'm going to write this test. Okay, if it's a lot of questions, then obviously I'm going to have the full page of questions. But for this purpose, it was just a baseline to see whether what they know and what they're struggling with, to see, for me to see how I should approach this going forward. Okay, now we are almost finished with this scanning, but again, as you can see, it's quick, it's easy, just by walking around, scanning all of this learners' question papers. Okay, so when I'm done, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to submit the scans, and then you will see now it will process it. Also notice, when you do this, colleagues, with a multiple choice questions, the results are instant. If you only use multiple choice questions, the results are instant and learners will be able to see the results right away. That's what I normally do when I do multiple choice questions. I will scan the results and then I will show it to them instantly so that they can see. Now, the reason why I'm not stopping the video is I actually want you to see that it really took me less than 5 minutes to mark the test. And there you can see the average of the class is 62%. Now I can go in and I have the learners' work available in front of me. The analysis is in front of me. I can now see, there you can see there's red bells. That is the question that they struggle with. So now I still have time left in my period. Now I can quickly go to that 2 questions and I can explain that to them again. And that is the power of SwiftGrade. And this is what I've mentioned when I said identifying the missing knowledge. So now let's actually go into SwiftGrade and create the test that you just saw my learners did. So how are we going to do this? First, we go to swiftgrade.com. So because it's SwiftGrade, we don't just have SwiftGrade, but the website is Go SwiftGrade. So as you can see on Go SwiftGrade, this is the page where you will land. For you, you will type on sign up if you don't have an account, and if you already have an account, it's log in. So the sign up option is the normal name, surname, email address, and then you in. So for me, I already have my account, so I will say log in, and then I will use my details to log in. So my email address and then my password. Now, again, remember SwiftGrade is a tool where you can only create the memo for an already set up question paper. SwiftGrade has an offline version as well as an online version. That means if your students have devices at home, for example, they can also complete tests at home. But again, you need to set the test up offline by taking a picture or by uploading a PDF, and then they can do it offline. But because this is a low-tech solutions, we will only focus on the offline part. Okay, so when you open SwiftGrade, this is what you will see. And the first thing to do when we come to SwiftGrade is create a new class. So this that you are currently seeing is all of my classes, right? But let's take it step by step. So the first one is SwiftGrade here on our left over there. Then if I slide to the right, you will see a plus button, and that is where you will create a class. Then next to that, it's a printable multiple choice question answer sheets, and then over there is just my name, my profile. So first, let me talk about this over here, print multiple choice answer sheet. When I click on that, it will open the multiple choice answer sheet. Now, let's say you have a question paper that only consists of multiple choice questions. This is where you will create your multiple choice questions. SwiftGrade will not create a multiple choice questions for you yourself, okay? You will then have to click on that button to create your multiple choice question for you, but only multiple choice questions. When we add open source questions, let's say where learners have to write in something, then SwiftGrade will create this document itself. But when you only focus on multiple choice questions, you have to press on the multiple choice question button. And then let's say you have 50 multiple choice questions. Okay, so then input students info, you can decide yes or no. Okay, now the difference with this is if you say yes, input students info, if you say yes, over here you will see there is a name. Okay, because I have created a class, I've added students to my class, and now that student's name will appear here. If I zoom out a little bit, over here you can see it is now Geography Grade 7 class. If I go to, look at the name there, if I go to Afrikaans 7B, for example, okay, and I take that one away, the name will now change, okay? The name will now change because now I'm in a different class, and I will talk about classes in a little bit. Right, so that is the first option. With SwiftGrade, when you have a class and when you have students in your class, they will create the answer sheet with the student's name on it, which is very, very good to have. That's why the most important part is to create the class and to add your students in that class. Now, if you say no, SwiftGrade will now provide a space where learners must write their names. So over here, you can see there's a first name and then there's a last name, also the email address. Okay, so for now, let's just keep it like that. Then over here, there's a number of answers. If you have a question paper consisting of 50 questions, which is multiple choice questions, then you will then go down over here and you will select 50. Okay, you will select 50. Then SwiftGrade will create the 50 question multiple choice question for you, as you can currently see over there. Then let's say you only had A to D, then you have that. Okay, it will create that for you, and then PDF format, and then your file will be ready to download. And if you click here, now your file will be downloaded, and then you can hand this out. And now you can go back and create the assessment. Okay, there's a reason why I'm telling you this now, because I'm going to refer to this again when I'm busy with creating the assessment that I will create in a minute. So this is the first part. When you have a multiple choice question already, first you have to do it over there. Okay, now I'm going to go back first, but this is where we start. First, you will create a class. Okay, when you click on class, you will give your class a name. So for this, I will use low tech again, low tech 2025, and I will say create. When I create my class will appear over here. Now over there, you can see there's no students yet in my class. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter my class, and then over here, there's an assessment tab, and then there's a student tab. If I click on the student tab, right, because remember I said the first thing that you should do is create a class and then add your students. It just makes it so much better to control the information and to have all of your students in one class, and then it will be easier for you to monitor your students' progress. So then over here, there's students. So if you click here, then you can now add students. So you can invite students or you can add them manually. When you invite students, they will need a email address. For this purpose, we will add students manually. Okay, so add manually. Now over here, what you must do now, first write the student's name, then the surname, then the username or email. I'm just going to say add, and then the password of the students. Now, why do the students need this information? SwiftGrade is really a wonderful tool, because even though it's low tech, remember, in my case, yes, we do have devices at school, but it sometimes gets difficult to book out some of the devices, right? Because of MCOs, and our main focus currently at school are MCO. So what works for me is the following. I've created students' usernames and password. So what students now can do is they can go home, search for SwiftGrade, go to login, and then they can type in the username and their password, and then they can have access to their work. The same applies for the parents. The parents can also log in with the students' details and the password, and the parents can now then see the students' work. But for this, at home, they need a device. Okay, so that's why I say SwiftGrade is really a wonderful tool to have. So, but let's say, and once you are done with that, you then say add student. But this is a long way of doing that. Okay, so let me just delete this quickly and then show you a much easier way to do this. Okay, so easy way to do this is by having a list of names already there for you. So how quick and easy this is by having my names already there. So as you can see, I have some random names over here. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to drag down. I'm going to say Command C or Control C. I'm going to go back to SwiftGrade, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to say Command V, which is Control V on Windows, and then just like that, I now have names ready over there. Okay. Now the names are there of the students. Now the username and password. Okay. Over here you can see there is auto generate username and auto generate password. So over here, if I say auto generate username, it will now generate a username for this learners. The same goes to auto generate password. If I say auto generate password, now the learners will have a password. Then if I say add students, over there you can say it's adding the students, and this could take up to 2 minutes depending on the internet. Okay, so once your student's name has been generated, SwiftGrade will then ask you this message. Please download the student's password, as you won't be able to see them later on. This is a very nice one to have, because remember, you need to have that password, especially when you want to send homework to your learners at home, and they have to access their login details then in order to complete the homework or the assessment that you sent home. So then you can download this. So I'm going to download it for now, low tech. Yes, I'm going to save it. And over there, it is now safe. Okay, so it's safe. If I quickly click on it to open it, I will then see this part is safe. Okay, and there you have it. And there is this information, safe and ready to use in the future. Okay, now my students are in a class. Okay, so there you can see there is now 30 students in the class of low tech. So the next step is to go to assessments, and this is where we will actually create the assessment now. So the first part is to create. Again, there's a paper mode and then there's an online mode. Okay, for this purpose in this class we will focus on paper mode. So then you press on paper mode. Just one thing there as well. Online, I've told you in the beginning that SwiftGrade, you can also do it online, but you won't be able to set up questions on SwiftGrade. In SwiftGrade, how the online version works is that you have to upload a PDF or Word document for the learners to read on the one side and then do the test on the other side. Okay, so let's go to paper mode. We select paper mode. So now, over here, you will see fill in the blank. So this is the question types that I've explained earlier on. If I open it, there you will see fill in the blank. This is where you will now fill in something over there. Okay. Then numeric gives you this options for your maths, for your maths teachers, right? Where they maybe have to use sin and then the answer in the middle, okay? The next one is maths. This is just another few functions that you probably maybe will need. Maybe you need that sign, okay, or maybe that sign, maybe that sign, depending on what the needs is, okay? Then the next one is the multiple choice one that we decided, where you will have to choose the correct answer, or will it be more than one answer? And then the free response. The free response, you will see there's no finite answer there, because with free response, it will give you a block where learners can then write a paragraph, or they can write sentences depending on the need, okay? So for this, yes, the next part is this one, the marks allocation. So this is just the marks allocation for the type of question that you will choose. Then over here is the size for the student's answer sheet. If I click on that, you will see currently we are on the free response. So if you only want one sentence, then this one will probably be fine. If you want two sentences, then you can just make it a little bit bigger like that. Or if you want the learners to write a let's say an essay, then it will obviously be a little bit bigger, okay? Okay, so free response is more for sentences, paragraphs, essays, writing, okay? So then the next one over there, it's add row. So when you are happy with the type of questions that you want, let's say we will use a multiple choice question. When we are happy with that, we will now say add row, okay? But if we know that we will need 5 multiple choice questions, for example, then over here next to that, there's add multiple rows. So if I'm adding over there, now over here I can add 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's already 1. And if I press it there, then my 5 multiple choice questions will then be available to me. Okay, so that is the options over here. Okay, now I'm quickly going to delete that 5 questions that I added. And then I want to go back here. So we have the mark allocations, then option. Over here, there is a P. Students can show their process. So let's say now this is a multiple choice questions, and I've pressed on P. Okay, again, over here, there's a size. If I press on size, this is the size it will then create on the SwiftGrade answer sheet. If this was a maths question and the answer, let's say the answer is B, but B was a sum that they had to work out, this is then where they will do it for you as a teacher to see how they got to the answer. Okay, this is what the process option is for you to see and for them to show you how they got to the answer B, for example. Okay, so that is that option. Now, I hope that makes sense, and I hope you're still with me. I hope you are still following. So for SwiftGrade, you need a question paper, right? That is the first thing, because on here, all I'm going to do now is do the memo. Now, I told you the test that I used was a baseline test for geography, term 1. And I already have the question paper available to the learners. And all I did was to create the memo on SwiftGrade. So how did I do that? First, I need my memo ready. Okay, so over here is my memo. So this is the memo, okay? Over there is my first question. That is the answer. This is my second one. That's my third one. That's my fourth one. Fifth, because the first one was already done. Okay, that's why I started with the second one over there and then the third one. So I've told my learners, when you write this test, you will need to write that answer, or that answer on the piece of paper. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm just quickly going to show you how quick and easy this actually is. So taking that down just quickly, and then I'm also going to do this with SwiftGrade, and I'm going to put SwiftGrade in that corner, and then I'm going to put my memo in this corner. Okay, so for the first question, I need a fill in the blank. Okay, so I need fill in the blanks. And how many fill in the blanks do I need? And this is how quick and easy it is to use SwiftGrade. The first one, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 7 fill in the blanks. And all I'm going to do is add multiple row. I'm going to add, and I'm going to click on 7. So now there is 7 answers. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to go and fill in the correct answer over here. And the correct answer for the first one was Keren. For the second one was Mantel. For the third one it was Kors. Then again Keren. Then Mantel. Then Mantel. And then Keren. Okay, so that is how quick and easy it is. Okay, the reason why I only have 7 and you see 8 because the first one on the question answer was already done for the learners. Okay, so over here, colleagues, there's an option. You will see there's auto correct student spelling errors. Now with SwiftGrade, learners are going to make errors. So instead of writing Keren, maybe they will write something close to Keren. Okay, then what SwiftGrade can do is, if I click, so this is what it is. Okay, AC means autocorrect student spelling. For example, your answer, student's response. Okay, how SwiftGrade will grade it? If AC is off, they will mark it incorrect. When AC is on, they will mark it correct. So maybe sometimes learners will use lowercase where they should have used uppercase. Then SwiftGrade can now detect that and then mark it again. So if you want the autocorrect, make sure that the autocorrect option is on. Okay, so it's on, as you can see, and I'm happy with that. Okay, now the next part, colleagues, is multiple choice questions. And the multiple choice question that we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we have 5 multiple choice questions. And how are we going to do that again? We're going to go over here, we're going to select multiple choice questions, and over here we're going to select add multiple rows. Okay, and I have 5 multiple rows. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 multiple rows. Okay, and then again, quick and easy, the answer is as follows. The first one is B, second one is A, third one is C, then it's A, and the last one is B. Okay, now when I'm happy with this, okay, when I'm happy with this, my memo I have on one side, and then I have my SwiftGrade on one side. If I'm happy with that, I have my 12 questions. Now I will say create. When I say create, SwiftGrade is now creating this for me. Okay, so now I'm done with my memo. I'm going to make SwiftGrade full screen again. So now over here you can see there's an assessment. If you click on this options, this is where you can go again and edit your work. Okay, edit, maybe you made a mistake. What also happens is, let's say the learners have already wrote the test. Now afterwards you accidentally made the correct answer A and it actually should be B. Then you can now go edit it, go change it to B, and then SwiftGrade will then adjust the learners' mark accordingly. Okay, which is actually very, very nice. Okay, so that is the edit option. Then over here you can rename it. Okay, you can rename it. So this is the assessment 1. I'm just going to write geo over there and rename it. So now it's assessment 1 geography. Okay, the date is there when you set it up. The paper, it's paper mode. When it's online, it will say online. The average is not there yet, but this is where the average will actually be. And then the next step is printing the answer sheet. But before I get there, let's go here again. So it's edit, rename. Then you can also copy it. Okay, you can make a copy of this to, depending where you would like to save it. This is low tech. This is my other classes. So if I've created this class for 7D, but I also want 7B or 7A or 7C to do the same one, I can now copy this test over there, and then SwiftGrade will create now a new paper for that class with that learner's name on it, which is also very, very nice to do. So I don't have to go and create this now again in my other classes. I can just copy it over. Okay, so I'm going to say cancel. Then you can also say share. Okay, and this is a very, very nice option as well. So here you can share this test with another teacher. Okay, all you have to do is you copy the link. Okay, you copy the link and then you share this link with the teacher in your grade that is actually doing the subject with. So once you do that, that teacher can click on the link, and now the teacher will also have a copy of the assessment that they now can do with their students as well. So they also don't have to go and do the test over again, which is a very, very nice tool to have. And it's also very nice for collaboration in your groups, because if we are teaching the same subject, it's only fair that all the students get the same work and the same exercises. Okay. Over here, you can collect statistics from teachers that have this assessment with. Here's how it works. Select the tick box, share the assessment link with the teachers. Teachers will be asked to share the result statistics with you. If they agree, you'll be able to see their statistics combined with yours in the average analysis section for this assessment. Very, very nice tool to have, because now when the teacher agrees to do that, you can now have the averages of the whole group instead of just your class. Okay, which is very, very nice to have. Okay, then the next part, and this is one that is actually very important, is to download your answer sheet. When you click on print, SwiftGrade will now create this answer sheet for you. Okay, and as you can see over here, they are now busy generating it, and this is how it will look. Now, as you can see, this is exactly the same question paper as the learners in the video earlier on did, where they wrote over there, answer the multiple choice question, and I went around and scanned. Okay, so once you have this, so the first step that you can do now is to, over here, number of seats, 1 seat per student. Okay, if you want extra seats, you can now select maybe 3 over here, because maybe there's someone extra that you forgot the name to put in the name over there, right? And then you can now just click on download. And once you click on download, it is now generating over there so that you can see. And then once it's finished generating, it will then download over there. As you can see, there it is. It's ready. I'm saving it. There it is. Okay, so now it's with my downloads, and all I now have to do is send it to the printer, print it out for the learners, and then I will have this in my hand. And now what I'm doing, I will take this to my class, hand it out for my learners with the question paper, and the learners will then write their work, which is very, very easy to do. I hope so, right? So once that option is done, the next part is to let the learner write their work actually, right? Like I showed you earlier on. So this is the part where they will now sit down, do the assessment, write it out. You as a teacher will visualize and wait till they are finished. Once they are finished is where the scan part will happen again. You will take out your phone, and then you will start to scan the learner's work. Okay? How? So this part over here, which is the next step, this is the part where, as you can see, scan answer sheet. This is the part where once you open your phone, you will see a camera option like this. Then you press that option, and now you will scan the learner's work. Once you are finished with the scans, you will press on submit. When you press on submit, this will then change to a statistic, right? So I will show you in a minute what it looks like. So because I don't have this one, I'm going to go back to this one, which is the same test basically. Okay, now it will look something like this. Okay, so over here you can see we have the averages of the class. It's 7.1 out of 12 is the average, which gives us a 59%. Then over here it's view results. Okay, and this is where the part now comes in, which is very important for me and for this purpose of this whole low tech solutions, and that is taking us back to what we mentioned when we talked about the feedback loop, and this is identifying the missing knowledge. Okay, so when I click on view results, this is now the part where I have a full view of my learners' results. Okay, I can see their marks, I can see which one are struggling with. Now this over here, this student has some answers that are flagged for your review. That means that there is some students with flags meaning the AI was unsure whether the answer is correct or incorrect, and you should actually go and check that. Remember, we are allowing AI to mark students' work. That's why we are using it as formative assessment and not summative assessment yet. But with SwiftGrade is almost leaning towards summative assessment. And who knows, maybe they get it right, where we can actually start to use SwiftGrade for summative assessment. For example, I know if the summative assessment only consists of multiple choice questions, I'm pretty sure that SwiftGrade will have a 100% accuracy marking that, okay? But when it comes to writing, there will be some discrepancies, and you as a teacher must make sure that this is actually correct, because remember, our learners have different handwriting, okay? So, this is what we do. This is the marks. When I go to answers, in this over here is, as you can see, showing the results of the learners, okay? And what SwiftGrade does is it takes a picture of what the learners have wrote, and then they show it over here, and you can actually review it just like I am currently doing it. Over here again, there, you can see that this handwriting wasn't the best, but even with this handwriting, SwiftGrade was able to mark it correctly, okay, which is very nice. If I go down to the incorrect ones, remember, we must check the incorrect ones as well, okay? So over here, if I open this, I, for example, know that this is Karen, but according to SwiftGrade, this is Chem, okay? This is Chem. So now I must make sure that this answer is actually correct. So over here, I will now write a 1, which means that this learner now is correct, because I can see that over here again. I will then go over here, make that a 1, because I can see that is also correct, okay? Then over here, I can see that one was correct, but again, this learner didn't follow the rules. Remember, with SwiftGrade, it's say clear, and this is where you as teacher must also come in, because you need to explain to the learners what to do. In SwiftGrade, it says, write big, write in the block, in write loose, okay? And if learners follow this, then it's correct, okay? So this learner didn't follow that. But that is how quickly it is to check the learner's work and to make it correct, okay? Then, if we go to the next question, the same thing, okay? Again, what is nice, SwiftGrade group the work, okay? So this, you can see group 5, they wrote it like that, but the correct answer was actually the mantle, okay? And you can see 21 got this correct. And now again over here, we can see that that one is actually a mantle, so we can make that one correct, we can make that one correct, and it's as easy as this, colleagues. This is now the marking. And I don't know about you, but I will choose this every single day of the week, every single day of the week, to come like this at the end of the day, go through the questions, see, especially when learners write. As I said, when learners are busy with multiple choice, you don't need to do this, okay? Then over here, averages is the averages of the class, colleagues. The mean, the medium, the highest mark, the lowest mark you can see, okay? And then when it comes to analysis, now this is the part where it took everything into consideration of what we mentioned, right? Straight from the beginning, when we talk about the feedback loop, it all boils down to this powerful tool, which is the analysis. And what analysis allow us as a teacher to do is to close the feedback loop, okay? Now, the feedback loop closes with identifying missing knowledge. And look at this powerful tool. Now, over here, SwiftGrade gives us an indication of our learners' marks. So here you can see the best question was 2, with 31 learners got that correct with the 89% accuracy. But this is what SwiftGrade does. If you go down over here, you can see there's a bell. And there, by that bell, students struggle with this question. Less than half got over 80%. Okay, so this is then something now we can go back to, explain it to the learners, focus maybe on that, build that content knowledge maybe. Then, if we go to number 7, again, there's a bell. It shows us the bells, right? Imagine how long it will take us to identify with what our learners are struggling with if we are marking, right? We can easily miss something, but over here, it's plain, it's easy for us to see, okay? For the final part of the video, we will look at Grade GPT. Now, Grade GPT is similar to ChatGPT, But in this case, Grade GPT allows us as a teacher to prompt SwiftGrade so that SwiftGrade can look at all the important parts in the answer that we would like it to focus on. You know, when we talk about ChatGPT, we always say prompting is king. The same applies to Grade GPT. In Grade GPT, we should tell SwiftGrade exactly what we want it to look out for in a learner's answers. So, without further ado, let me show you what I'm talking about. So first, you need to have an assessment ready, and for this assessment is usually the free response type where learners can write sentences or even paragraphs, right? So for this case, I will go into my assessment. So here you can see there is assessment 1, and over here you can see that there are not an average like we've seen in the previous videos, because when you look here, some answers in this assessment need manual grading. So that is where Grade GPT comes in. So what I will do now is I will say view results. Okay, view results. And if I go to answers over there, so over here you will see that the learners actually wrote a sentence. Okay, and just to show you quickly what sentence it was. So this was the activity. Rewrite each of the following sentences in the reported indirect speech, making any necessary changes to pronouns, verb tenses, and time expressions. So this was the activity that they did. Then, obviously, as always, I have my memo ready for question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because now what I'm going to do, I have to go and put in some directions for Grade GPT in order for it to mark this learner's scripts. So how do I do that? First, over here, you will see there is an AI Grade GPT button. So when I click on Grade GPT button, it will open this page for me that you're currently seeing. So here, if I just quickly read through it, over here, provide feedback, evaluate students' understanding, grade a maths problem, do a completion check. But this is where we will actually be at. Input your grading criteria for all students below. So here is where you prompt it so that it can understand what parts of the answers it should focus on. So the question that I just showed you consists of 3 marks each, right? So I now have to prompt this Grade GPT so that it understands that there is 3 marks available and that it should look at different aspects of the learner's answer. So first, the answer of, or rather, let me say, the question of the learners was the following. So the questions of the learners was the following. So now I go to my questions and I say, and I highlight this, and then I'm just going to copy it over there so that now Grade GPT knows what the question was. So Emma said, I will stay at home tomorrow. Okay. And the instructions was now, again, I'm going to give you the instructions as well, right? So I'm copying the instructions and I'm just pasting the instructions there. The more info you give it, the better for you to understand what to do, okay? Then I will say the answer is out of 3 marks. Learners gets a correct mark for the following. And then I will say 1 mark for. So now what I'm doing, colleagues, I'm now giving Grade GPT the following prompt. So here you can see there's my first criteria, my second, and my third. So the first one is for the use of that after the reported verb. So I'm going to say here 1 mark for the use of that after that. And then I'm going to say 1 mark for. Now I'm going to my next one, which is pronouns and tense will change. So you can see I'm just copying and pasting my mark criteria. And then I will say the last one, 1 mark for the last part, which is the time expression. So copy, and then I will paste it there. Okay, so now so the question of the learners was the following. Emma said, I will stay at home tomorrow. And the instruction was, read out each of the following sentences in the reported indirect speech, making any necessary changes to pronouns, verb, tenses, and time expressions. The answer is out of 3 marks. Learners get a correct mark for the following, 1 mark for the use of that after the reported verb, 1 mark for pronouns and tense, see to will, and then 1 mark for time expression, change tomorrow and the next day. So now, quickly, if you see here, colleagues, there you can see the learners doesn't have any points or feedback. So now, if I'm happy with my prompt, I will now click this button, which is send. So when I say send, it will open this for me. Okay, I will say start grading because I'm happy with my prompting, and now it will look for that specific prompts that I gave it, and it will now look at the sentence of the learners and then grade it according to what I said. If learners have all 3 of that marks, it will get full marks. If they have 1 or 2, and that is, so let's see how this grading. An important part here is, again, I'm done grading, but this part, please make sure to double check my work. And that is what we always should do, colleagues. We should always double check the AI's work. Remember, at the end of the day, we are the teachers, we are the professional that is getting paid to mark learners' script. Yes, this makes it very, very easy for us, but still, we should make sure of the following. So let's see how it did. So over here, you can see there it gave it a 2 out of 3, for example. It said there, your answer correctly uses that after the reporting verb, correctly changes the pronoun from I. See, just like I input it into the prompt over there, colleagues, as you can see. However, remember that pronoun sounds like C should not be capitalized, so it looked out for the capital letters as well. Very interesting, right? So over here you can see it gives that one 2 out of 3, but this one it got 3 out of 3, 3 out of 3, this one only 1, 2 out of 3, and then you can see 3 out of 3 for that as well. And that is Grade GPT. You can see what a wonderful tool this is. Remember, prompting is king. What you put in is what it will focus on, and that is the power of Grade GPT. Now, with SwiftGrade, colleagues, there is a lot of wonderful tools that you can use. Very, very useful tools. So hopefully you will start implementing this in your classroom, and as I said earlier on, work smarter and not harder. Before we go, colleagues, there's one more thing that I would like to show you. So I'm just quickly going to leave that part. So when you open SwiftGrade and you don't know where to go, you are struggling, you are stucking, there's one more thing that you can actually do that will help you. So first, you can go to your profile over there. You can click on your profile, and then there's a Yelp button. When you click the Yelp button, there's a Yelp Center over there. When I click on the Yelp Center, it will open this page over here. And this page gives you a lot of information that you need to know about SwiftGrade. It shows you key ideas of different answer types, if you forgot that, the answer sheet, scanning of papers, there's student Yelp if you need, and then over here you can see there's a lot of other information, teacher Yelp, student Yelp, webinars and videos, right? Just for you to check it again, there's the answer types, the free response that we did in the module as well, right? So there's just a lot of help for you as a teacher if you get stuck. The important part is go to class, open your laptop, start working on it. It will be a huge benefit to you, colleagues. And again, remember that you are the teacher, so with every tool that you use, make sure that you are the one that double check it at the end. And that is SwiftGrade. So that's it. Thank you for making it to the end of this module. A lot was said, but I believe that every little bit of information was valuable. My hope is that you will actually start using this tool. A little bit less of the red pen and a little bit more of SwiftGrade. Remember, our goal is to close the feedback loop, tease the information, assess the learners on the information, provide feedback, instant feedback, find the missing knowledge, and then build knowledge again. That is the feedback loop, and that is the power of this tool called SwiftGrade. It helps us to give the learners instant feedback and also to find the missing knowledge, find the information that our learners are struggling with. So, it was a pleasure being here with you. Till next time. See you.